Hello, and welcome to 20 Minutes with Jesus. Take a slow breath. Let your heart quiet down for a moment. You don't need to understand everything today to trust God. Let's begin. There are moments in the journey of faith when God asks for trust before He offers understanding. The heart naturally wants clarity, reasons, explanations, assurance that everything will make sense. But God often begins with trust, not answers. This can feel deeply uncomfortable. We are taught to move once things are clear, to decide once we understand, to trust once we see the full picture. But faith does not always work this way. Sometimes God invites obedience, surrender, and rest long before understanding arrives. God knows how much the heart wants explanation. We want to know why things happened the way they did. We want to understand delays, losses, and unanswered prayers. We want clarity so we can feel secure. But God's wisdom is not revealed all at once. He knows that understanding too early can create false confidence. It can make us rely on information rather than relationship. So He invites trust first, a trust rooted not in answers, but in who He is. Trust before understanding feels risky. It means walking without certainty. It means surrendering the need to explain everything. It means choosing faith when logic feels incomplete. And yet, this is where faith deepens. God does not withhold understanding to be cruel. He withholds it to protect the heart. He knows when explanations would overwhelm, confuse, or distract from what truly matters. Sometimes clarity would shift focus away from trust. Trust keeps the heart close. When you trust without understanding, you remain dependent on God rather than on conclusions. You stay attentive, you stay prayerful, you stay open. God values this posture deeply. This season often reveals where the heart seeks security. Do you feel safe only when things make sense? Do you feel anxious when answers are delayed? Do you struggle to rest without explanation? God gently exposes these areas not to shame you, but to heal misplaced dependence. Trust before understanding teaches humility. It reminds us that we do not see the full picture, that our perspective is limited, that God's ways are higher, broader, and wiser than our own. This humility creates space for peace. God also uses this season to refine motives. Sometimes we want understanding so we can control outcomes. Sometimes we want answers so we can protect ourselves from disappointment. God invites trust instead, not blind trust, but relational trust. Trust that God sees what you cannot. Trust that He knows what lies ahead. Trust that He is working with intention. This kind of trust does not ignore pain or confusion. It brings them honestly into God's presence. You do not pretend to understand. You simply choose to remain. Remaining without understanding is powerful faith. It says, I don't see clearly, but I trust you. It says, I don't have answers, but I believe you are good. It says, I don't know what's next, but I know you are with me. God honors this faith. Understanding often comes later, slowly, gently, sometimes in hindsight. But trust must come first. Trust opens the door for peace even before clarity arrives. As this episode begins, allow yourself to release the pressure to understand everything right now. God is not asking you to figure it all out. He is inviting you to trust Him where you are. And that trust, quiet, honest, and steady, is enough for today. God values trust because trust keeps the heart close. Explanations can inform the mind, but trust shapes relationship. When God asks you to trust before you understand, He is inviting you into deeper dependence, not on answers, but on Him. Explanations have limits. They can clarify events, but they cannot always heal pain. They can describe outcomes, but they cannot guarantee peace. Many times, even when explanations are given, the heart remains restless. God knows this. That is why He prioritizes trust over information. Trust anchors the heart when answers are incomplete. When you trust God, you are not relying on circumstances to feel secure. You are relying on His character. This kind of trust steadies you when situations remain unresolved. It keeps you grounded when clarity is delayed. God values trust because it protects the relationship. If faith depended on constant explanations, it would become conditional. You would trust only when God's actions made sense to you. But trust that exists without explanation is relational. It remains even when understanding lags behind. This kind of trust honors God's wisdom. It acknowledges that God sees beyond the present moment. He knows how every detail connects. What feels confusing now may make sense later, but trust keeps the heart aligned until that time comes. God also values trust because explanations can create false control. When we understand something fully, we may feel secure enough to stop depending on God. We begin to manage outcomes with logic rather than prayer. Trust, however, keeps the heart surrendered. It maintains humility. Trust says, "I don't need to know everything to remain faithful." This posture invites peace. God values trust because it allows Him to work freely. When you demand explanations, you often limit how God can move. You set conditions for faith, but when you trust, you give God space to work in ways you cannot predict. Trust keeps the heart open. Trust also matures faith. Immature faith often needs constant reassurance. Mature faith remains steady even when reassurance is delayed. God is not withholding explanations to test you. He is strengthening your faith to last. Trust develops endurance. It teaches you how to remain faithful through uncertainty. It trains the heart to stay connected without needing immediate resolution. This endurance will sustain you in future seasons when challenges are greater. God values trust because it aligns the heart with His timing. Explanations often arrive later, in hindsight, reflection, or future understanding. Trust allows you to wait without resentment. It keeps you from rushing ahead or withdrawing in frustration. Trust also reveals what the heart truly depends on. Do you trust God only when life makes sense? Or do you trust Him because He is faithful? God uses seasons without explanation to answer this gently. Trust before understanding also deepens intimacy. When you trust God without answers, you remain close. You talk to Him honestly. You bring confusion into His presence. You stay relational rather than transactional. This intimacy matters to God. He desires relationship more than compliance. He values hearts that remain connected even when circumstances feel unclear. Trust builds this connection. God does not promise immediate understanding. He promises presence. And presence is enough to sustain the heart when answers are delayed. Trust allows you to experience that presence fully. If today you feel unsettled because you do not understand what God is doing, pause. You are not failing in faith. You are being invited into deeper trust. You do not need to have clarity to remain faithful. You do not need explanations to stay close. You do not need answers to trust God. God values your trust, not because He withholds understanding forever, but because trust keeps you aligned while understanding is still forming. As this episode continues, allow yourself to rest in this truth. God is not asking you to ignore questions. He is asking you to trust Him with them. And in that trust, your heart will find stability, even before understanding arrives. There are seasons when the path ahead feels undefined. You know God is present. You know He is faithful. but you do not yet know where things are leading. No clear explanation has been given. No detailed plan has been revealed. And in this space, God invites something deeper than understanding. He invites trust. Trusting God when the path is unclear is one of the purest expressions of faith. It means choosing to walk without seeing the full picture. It means accepting that not every step comes with clarity. It means believing that God's guidance is still active even when direction feels incomplete. This kind of trust does not come naturally. The heart wants certainty. It wants to know what to expect so it can prepare emotionally and practically. Uncertainty feels vulnerable. It exposes our need for control and our discomfort with dependence. God knows this, and He meets us patiently here. When the path is unclear, God is not being vague. He is being relational. He is inviting you to walk with Him rather than ahead of Him. When everything is explained in advance, the heart can move independently. But when clarity is limited, you stay close. You pray more honestly. You listen more carefully. You remain attentive. This closeness matters. God values proximity over predictability. He is not interested in giving you a map if it causes you to walk alone. He prefers to guide you step by step, forming trust along the way. Trusting without understanding also teaches surrender. You learn to release the need to manage outcomes. You stop trying to anticipate every scenario. You accept that God knows where the path leads, even if you do not. This surrender is not resignation. It is confidence placed in God's wisdom. Confidence that God sees beyond the present moment. Confidence that He knows what lies ahead. Confidence that He is guiding with intention. God often keeps the path unclear, because clarity too early can create fear or pride. Fear, because you may feel overwhelmed by what you see ahead. Pride, because you may feel capable of handling it on your own. God withholds clarity not to frustrate you, but to protect you. Trust also forms patience. When the path is unclear, progress feels slow. You cannot rush toward a destination you cannot see. Patience becomes necessary. And patience, though difficult, strengthens faith. It teaches the heart how to wait without withdrawing. Patience formed in uncertainty will sustain you later. God also uses unclear paths to refine obedience. When instructions are specific, obedience can feel mechanical. But when direction is general, obedience becomes relational. You obey because you trust God's voice, not because you understand every detail. This kind of obedience is flexible, humble, and attentive. Trusting God without understanding also reveals what the heart depends on for peace. Do you feel calm only when things make sense? Do you feel secure only when you can plan ahead? Do you struggle to rest when answers are delayed? God gently exposes these dependencies so He can heal them. He desires to be your source of peace, not clarity. Peace that depends on understanding is fragile. Peace that rests in God is resilient. God forms this resilience by allowing the path to remain unclear for a time. Trust also deepens humility. You recognize your limitations. You accept that your perspective is partial. You acknowledge that God's ways are higher. This humility opens the heart to grace. It keeps you teachable and grounded. God resists pride, but gives grace to the humble. Trusting without understanding keeps the heart humble. Another important work God does in these seasons is strengthening discernment. When you cannot rely on explanation, you learn to rely on alignment. You pay attention to peace, restraint, and conviction. You learn to sense when a step feels right, even if you cannot fully explain why. This discernment becomes a guide when clarity is limited. God often leads through quiet assurance rather than detailed instruction. He trains the heart to recognize His presence beyond words. This ability will guide you well in future seasons when decisions become more complex. Trusting God when the path is unclear also builds courage. It takes courage to keep walking without guarantees. It takes courage to remain faithful without certainty. It takes courage to trust that God is guiding even when you cannot see the destination. This courage is not self-generated. It is born from relationship. You trust God not because the path is safe, but because He is faithful. If today you feel unsettled because you do not understand where God is leading, pause and breathe. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are learning to trust at a deeper level. God is not asking you to ignore your questions. He is asking you to hold them gently while you walk with Him. Understanding will come in time, sometimes gradually, sometimes in hindsight. But trust must come now. Trust keeps the heart aligned while clarity is still forming. You do not need to see the whole path. You only need to stay close. God is guiding you step by step. He is present in the uncertainty. And He is faithful to lead you where you need to go. Trust Him here. This season is not about answers. It is about relationship. And that relationship will carry you safely forward, even when the path remains unclear. Let's pray together. God, we come before You with hearts that want clarity, but choose trust. We admit that uncertainty makes us uncomfortable. We like to know where we are going, how things will unfold, and when answers will arrive. And yet, You invite us to walk with You, even when understanding has not come. Today, we choose to trust You here. We bring You our questions without demanding explanations. We bring You our fears without letting them lead. We bring You our hopes without insisting on timelines. Teach us how to rest in You when the path is still unclear. God, quiet the noise in our minds. When thoughts race ahead, slow us down. When anxiety tries to fill the gaps, anchor us in peace. When we feel tempted to force answers, remind us to stay close. We release our need to control outcomes. We let go of the pressure to figure everything out. We surrender the desire to understand before we obey. We choose to believe that You are guiding us even when direction feels incomplete. God, strengthen our trust. Help us remember who You are when circumstances feel uncertain. Remind us of Your faithfulness in past seasons. Let memory become an anchor when clarity is delayed. Teach us how to walk by peace. When a step feels rushed, give us restraint. When a step feels steady, give us courage. When waiting feels heavy, give us patience. God, form humility in our hearts. Help us accept that we do not see the full picture. Teach us to value relationship more than information. Keep our hearts teachable and open, willing to be led one step at a time. If fear has been shaping our expectations, heal it. If disappointment has made us cautious, restore hope. If confusion has made us weary, renew our strength. God, we trust that You know where this path leads. Even when we cannot explain it, even when we cannot predict it, even when we cannot control it, we choose to stay close to You. Thank You for walking with us patiently. Thank You for not rushing us ahead of grace. Thank You for valuing trust more than understanding. We place our lives in Your hands again today. Lead us gently. Guard our hearts with peace. And remind us that trusting You is never wasted, even when answers come later. We trust You now. We trust You here. We trust You as we walk forward. As we come to the end of this episode, allow your heart to settle into a gentle truth. You do not need to understand everything in order to walk faithfully with God. Faith is not built on explanations. It is built on trust. Trust that God is present, attentive, and guiding, even when clarity feels incomplete. There will be seasons when understanding comes later. Sometimes it arrives slowly, through reflection. Sometimes it comes unexpectedly, in hindsight. And sometimes it remains partial, yet no less meaningful. God does not measure your faith by how much you know. He measures it by how closely you remain with Him. If today you are walking without answers, you are not failing. You are not behind. You are practicing a deeper kind of faith, one that rests in relationship rather than certainty. Trusting God before understanding is an act of surrender. It says, I don't need to see the whole picture to believe you are good. It says, I don't need all the details to stay close. It says, I will keep walking with you, even when the path is unclear. God honors this posture. As you return to your day, resist the pressure to force clarity. You are allowed to move gently. You are allowed to wait. You are allowed to trust that God's timing is intentional and His guidance is faithful. Uncertainty does not mean God is absent. Questions do not mean faith is weak. Waiting does not mean nothing is happening. Often, the most meaningful growth happens quietly, beneath the surface, while trust is being formed. If you feel tempted to rush ahead just to feel secure, pause. Let peace guide you instead of urgency. God does not require you to understand everything today. He invites you to remain close today, and closeness is enough. As you continue walking with God, let your faith be simple and honest. Bring your questions without fear. Bring your uncertainty without shame. God is not threatened by what you do not understand. He is patient with your process. If this episode encouraged your heart, continue this journey with God, not striving for answers, but choosing trust one step at a time. Stay prayerful, stay attentive, stay open. Understanding will come when it is needed. Until then, trust this: God sees the whole path. God knows where you are going, and God is walking with you, even now. You do not need to understand everything to be safe in His care. You only need to stay close, and that is enough.